A lot of the time, small cities in America are ignored in favor of the large metropolises of the country. How many times have you heard about places like Houston, Los Angeles, or Chicago? Too many times. So I thought it would be interesting to go over some of the fastest growing small cities. This is going to work a bit less like a top 10 list, because I want to talk a little bit about how these cities are growing and the current or future infrastructures in the communities. Before that though, I want to quickly ask if you would please consider subscribing to the channel. We make geography content like this every week, so if that's the kind of thing you enjoy watching on YouTube or want to watch, we're a good channel for you, and I encourage you to click the button below so you don't miss any future uploads. Thank you. So first of all, I wanted to make sure I was actually talking about interesting areas. So each state is only allowed to be included once. Growth in places like Texas and Florida have been at a rate that would take over this list and make the video a lot less fun. So with that out of the way, we can get right into our first city, Redmond, Washington. So Redmond is located in the Seattle metropolitan area on the more eastern edge, northeast of Bellevue. And I was surprised that something so far down on this list would have such an insane difference over the last 10 years. Redmond has completely redefined what it is as a city. First, let's talk about the downtown. So on Redmond Way, the main road through the central part of the city, there are new apartments and modern buildings all around, making the city look very high-end and new. Now this is what I thought was crazy, because looking at this intersection with 166th Avenue in the downtown and going back to 2014, it looks like a completely different city in a different place. It's more forested with a small cafe on the corner. On this corner today is a 6-story Hilton Garden Inn. The way this downtown has gone from a nice suburban area to a real urban center with new construction absolutely everywhere is crazy. It's almost unrecognizably different. Now this is mostly to do with the economy of the city, with Microsoft being the biggest culprit here. Building their headquarters on the south side of the city, the corporate headquarters employ 47,000 workers from around the Redmond area, meaning there is so much need for new high-end developments to accommodate the headquarters. And it's not just Microsoft either. AT&T, Nintendo, Amazon, Boeing, Starbucks, and even SpaceX all have major operations within the city. Now, most of the new development and growth has come closer to these employers and within the downtown, but there's also been growth on the north side with new communities popping up like this one. Infrastructurally, I even have to mention some public transportation here on the channel, because the downtown Redmond Link Extension project is incredibly important to the city, building light rail from Redmond into Seattle, making commutes significantly easier for the companies. As I said, Microsoft alone employs 47,000 people, and the city doesn't have enough to keep it going on its own. The link is set to be completed in 2025 and will significantly change transportation in the city. Now with the growth, Redmond is currently at 76,000 residents, and back in 2014 it had just 59,400. And from 2014 to 2019 it grew an average of 3.9% per year. Next up we have Beaumont, but not Beaumont, Texas, but instead Beaumont, California. Located on the eastern edge of the Los Angeles metropolitan area, Beaumont has not been significantly affected by the negative changes that a lot of Los Angeles has seen, and it's in an area that's still growing very nicely and seems like something you'd see in Arizona or Nevada. Now the result of this is just pure and overwhelming suburban growth. In the western, more high-end part of the city, we've seen more detailed suburban growth with new communities popping up all over, basically just filling in the undeveloped areas. As well as that, the whole northeast block of the city is new. And for a suburban community with under 50,000 residents going back into 2010, just one large-scale new development is enough to make a massive difference for the city. As well as the completed developments, the city is expected to continue its growth, especially in the west. The population in 2014 was 42,000, increasing to 55,000 in 2021. Between 2014 and 2019, it experienced a growth of 4% per year. Next up, we move to Fort Myers, Florida. Located on the Caloosahatchee River on the Gulf Coast side of southern Florida, Fort Myers is an older city for its area, and this one I'm more interested in because on paper it doesn't really look all that different from 2010, and the developments haven't been widespread. But still the city has gained 20,000 residents. Now I think most of this has come from suburban development on the eastern side of the city, with new high-end private waterside communities being built into the swampy landscape. The downtown hasn't seen much change, and mostly it's been outside the main city area, especially in this region between the highway and the more urban parts of the city. The population was 70,000 in 2014, increasing to 92,000 in 2021 at a rate of 4.3%. Next, we move to Castle Rock, Colorado, a city I'm actually a big fan of. So it's located south of the Denver metro, but being in a perfect location where it's a self-defined city and can't fully be considered a suburb, and yet it's within commuting distance of anywhere in the southern part of the Denver metro, from Centennial to the Denver Tech Center and even into the downtown potentially. Now, since 2010, Castle Rock has completed the Meadows neighborhood on the west side of the city, built some new neighborhoods in the northeast corner, and built up a large chunk of land on the southern end. Now, even with this Denver-oriented suburban growth around the city, Castle Rock has continued to hold its own culturally and define its downtown with shops and restaurants. When I was there, it did seem like its own place, which I was really impressed with given its proximity to Denver. In 2014, its population was 55,000, increasing to 76,000 in 2021 at a rate of 4.4% per year. I did also think it was interesting that the population was just 8,000 in 1990, meaning basically all of the suburban growth has happened more recently in history. Next up, we move to a pretty interesting one that you might not expect, which is Ankeny, Iowa. So this is a suburb located on the north side of the Des Moines metro, and I think the growth here is especially interesting for a few reasons. Now, for starters, usually suburban growth is pretty even outwards from the city center. Maybe certain areas of the city will grow faster, but it's at least relatively even. With Ankeny, it feels less like a suburb because it's started to expand at such a rate that it feels disconnected from the city. There's a stretch of land that's much less built up between I-35 and the city lines. But once it gets to Ankeny, the growth becomes much more widespread. So currently Ankeny is expanding the most on its north side. The city is built using 1x1 mile grid, making it really easy to see that the city has just been building up into new blocks. This block has been fully built, and new developments continue to expand into new areas. Ankeny has a pretty real downtown with some actual urban areas, but the main growth continues to be within the suburban areas because of its proximity to Des Moines. The population went from 53,000 in 2014 to 70,000 in 2021, increasing at a rate of 4.8% per year. Next up, we have Bentonville, Arkansas. Now, when thinking about the fastest growing small cities around the country, Arkansas as a state is almost never what comes to mind. But Bentonville is located in the northwest corner of the state, which is basically the opposite of the rest of the state. So obviously Bentonville is known for being the location of the Walmart headquarters, meaning its economy has a lot more to work with, and the city has a head start. Most of the major growth has come in the south with these very basic subdivisions that have been popping up all over the metropolitan area that I'm not a big fan of. But there have also been some higher income communities being built. These neighborhoods are continuing to pop up as the rest of the metro grows. The population was 42,000 in 2014, increasing to 57,000 in 2021 at a rate of 5.5% per year with no signs of stopping. Next up, we have Apex, North Carolina. Now, Apex is a bit different because even though it's still on the edge of a metropolitan area, Raleigh to be exact, it feels more within the city than a lot of the others. The growth has been a little more low-key. North of the downtown, there were some new neighborhoods built. These made a pretty big difference because of how dense they were, with some apartment complexes and just smaller subdivisions. On the south side, there have been some new commercial developments as well right along the highway. Now, speaking of highway, Apex has the most major new road infrastructure on this list, with the new Raleigh-Durham Beltway being built through the west side of Apex, helping stimulate the economy along the route and being another major reason for the growth in the city. In 2014, the population was 44,000, increasing to 62,000 in 2021 at a rate of 6.1% per year. Next, we have Leander, Texas as our third fastest growing city on the list. So this is a city located in the northwest corner of the Austin metro. Now, if you're watching this and know how the U.S. has been growing, the northern part of Austin is probably the fastest growing region in the entire country, with places like Georgetown, Round Rock, Pflugerville, and Cedar Park all experiencing pretty crazy growth. Leander just happened to end up being the fastest growing. Turning back the clock to 2010, the city was absolutely nothing like it is today, experiencing decent suburban growth, but after that the city would start to absolutely explode in population, especially north of the downtown. There are way too many new communities to talk about. All of this is new, everything across the freeway is new, and all of the already built up areas, south and southwest, have filled themselves in and basically doubled in size. Basically everywhere that can be built on has been built on. As well as that, the road infrastructure has seen a major change, with State Route 183 running by the east side of the city as it continues to be built through the area. Leander had a population of 35,000 in 2014, increasing to 67,000 in 2021 at a rate of 12.2%. Next up, we have Queen Creek, Arizona as the number 2 on our list. Now, I'll get right into this one because it has the most predictable growth of any of these cities. So it's located in the southeast corner of the Phoenix metro along the Queen Creek. Basically, it's just the next suburb to see major increase in its growth. The entire Phoenix area is still growing at a good rate, and because they're running out of suitable land for expansion that isn't completely desert, the areas along bits of water with better soil are going to be the next places to grow. Queen Creek was just waiting for its time to be the next city on the edge. And it'll be Santan Valley after that and continue into places like Florence. So Queen Creek basically just timed itself out perfectly to be so high on this list, with growth being experienced everywhere. East of the downtown has seen the most recent growth, seeing plenty of new developments. Now, something interesting I will say is that there isn't much for road infrastructure or state highways or anything. There's obviously commercial stroads, but not much more than that. As well as that, the city does not really have a real downtown. It's all just pure suburban growth. In fact, up until around 2002, the population was under 5,000 until growth hit the city. In 2014, the population was at 33,000, increasing to 66,000 in 2021 at a growth rate of 14.2%. Now finally, we have made it to the fastest growing small city in the US, which is Herriman, Utah. Now, just like every other city on this list, it's located right at the edge of a metropolitan area, this time Salt Lake City. Now, Herriman has basically gone from nothing to something over this time period. In 2010, there was some pretty major suburban growth on the south side of the city into the more hilly part of town. Since then, the northeast part of the city has started to fill itself in a lot more, with more dense, efficient suburban growth that works well for these newer cities. Something I think is interesting is that within the central part of the town that was not yet built, Herriman actually created a town center for itself, which feels incredibly weird and almost dystopian. There are large apartment complexes lining the edge of this town center park, and it was only completed within the last year or two, showing just how new and incredible this growth has been for the city. As well as that, State Route 85 was built along the eastern edge of the city to meet the needs of this western part of the metro. It's a weird divided highway freeway-like road with each direction of traffic located up to 600 feet away from each other in some places, but with normal surface intersections at major roads. This all has only helped stimulate the economy with new commercial developments popping up in and around the city. The population was 28,500 in 2014, increasing to 58,000 in 2021 at a growth rate of 14.8% every single year. It's the fastest growing small city in the country and shows you a lot about how cities in the US have been exploding in population. So after a very detailed video, I think I've talked about everything I wanted to. These cities are incredibly interesting to look at, and giving these detailed looks at the growth of smaller cities around the country hopefully gave you a little bit of insight as to exactly what's going on with the growth in the US. Thank you to the members this week: Sturfles, Pole-Pot's Piehole, Rosebud 4, KMS162, Jeremy Jarvis, Haystack, Boss King Inc., Blang, Christopher DeAngelis, JL, Darkbird, Elijah Pass, Big Pasty, Jeremy Crone, Wolflink73, Snyder Swine, Florida Jake, Stormy Knight, Nikita Martinoff, Benjamin Whiting, Ryan Devins, Haas of the Wolf, Dominic Psyche, and Bryson. I appreciate you all so much. You really help out the channel. If you want to become a member, the link is down in the description below. It just helps me out as a person. All of this money goes straight into my bank account. So if you want to help me out with my future and you appreciate the content, this is the best way to do it. It's really easy. Thank you so much. I genuinely appreciate all of you so much.